All right, baby. We are live in effect. It is Thursday, and when you hear that intro music, you know what time it is. And sorry for the delay. We had to make sure that we had everything right for you, but everything is right. Everything is right on the Locker Room Show. We've got one hell of a show lined up for you tonight, so I'm not going to waste your time. First thing, let me introduce the gentleman that holds me down every single Thursday, none other than the great from St. Louis, Q, the Guru. What's going on, Guru?
Man, Coach, I'm kind of lost in words, man. When you have a legitimate bona fide legend on, man, that hits different. I don't even have a lot to say. We can just break the huddle and get to it. I'm gonna start.
When the Guru ain't got nothing to say,
Yeah, right.
Guest with us tonight, and you see the gentleman that I have in the middle of the screen. Now, he's a gentleman on air, but he wasn't necessarily a gentleman on the football field. He was known to knock your head off if you came across the middle. This is a Chicago Bears great, you guys. Top 100 player, I think more top 50. He went on to have a great career. The 46 defense that many of you guys have heard of that wreaked havoc on many quarterbacks was named after the gentleman in the middle of the screen. He is an Ohio State legend, 3-time Big Ten champion. He's an entrepreneur. He was a great AFL coach. I mean, the list goes on. So let me shut up. That is none other than the great Doug Plank. How's it going, Coach Plank?
No, guys, I want to thank you. I'm humbled by the guests you've had on the show. Oh, my gosh. I feel very flattered to even be here. So I want to thank you. I don't
definitely appreciate you coming on.
Oh man, we are pumped up to have you, Coach. And like I said, I mean, my high school coach hit me up this morning and said, "You're about to have Doug Plank on?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Man, him and Jack Tatum were my guys." So we are pumped up to have you on, Coach. I mean, an amazing career. And then the beautiful thing is just how much mentorship, how much you gave back to the game, how much you helped other people. So we're just so glad to have you on, Coach, and really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. You know, when you actually coach other players, you feel differently than when you played. It's like you're giving them something inside of you, your knowledge or your courage or something along those lines. It was so satisfying just to watch players that had improved over the course of the year because of things that you had said to them.
Yeah.
And so, some of it was material. Other things were just motivational. Come on, guys. Is that the best you got? That's all the harder you can hit somebody. Yeah. Come on.
Yeah. So I don't know how well you would have done in today's game, Coach, since they want to protect everybody, but no, I could definitely see that pumping some guys up. So let's get into it. I mean, if you're joining us for the first time, welcome to the show. Obviously, you picked a great show to join us, and please make sure that you like, subscribe, and share, and bring a friend every Thursday with you to the Locker Room Show. But let's get into it. The topics are on the bottom ticker, Coach, and the first one is the move to Columbus, Ohio. You're a Pennsylvania guy, and I know Pennsylvania loves its football. Tell us a little bit of the story, how you left PA to go to Columbus, Ohio.
Believe me, when you're playing for a team that wasn't very successful in high school, there weren't people knocking at my door. "Hey, Doug, let us in. We want to sign you to a scholarship." No, that never was happening. What happened, we had lost a lot of those games over my 3 years there at the high school. And it was going into my senior season, I felt like I needed to reach out to coaches nearby in the area. And you guys know this. When you play for anybody in a state, especially Pennsylvania, you got Pitt and Penn State. I mean, they rule the day. And Penn State was Joe Paterno. And so my senior season, I hadn't really heard from just about anybody. And I wrote a letter every game I played my senior year to Joe Paterno. I threw this many touchdown passes. I got interceptions. I had this many tackles. I never heard a word from Joe Paterno all season long until the season ended. He called the next day and congratulated me on the letters that I had written. And these letters started out as, "Dear Coach Paterno, I really, 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 really want to play at Penn State." Hey, you got to be different, man. It's a big time show. And there's a lot of guys vying for these positions. And he said, "Doug, I'm so sorry. We've already recruited and identified players that we are going to go after, but I had to call you because I've never seen anybody write a letter like you wrote me." And he said, I already feel like you're in a part of our family because, you know, it's going to be a different situation wherever I go. And, but you know, the great thing about it, when he was recruiting the next week, he stopped at my high school in Pittsburgh. And I was called down to the office and I go, "Oh my gosh, now what did I do?" You know, I was always throwing snowballs through windows and things like that. I thought, "Oh my gosh, they got me on something." And I get on there and Joe Paterno is in the office. And he said, "Doug, I just wanted to come and shake your hand, tell you, you know, what those letters meant." And he said, "I just want to wish you the best." Those letters were posted in the Pittsburgh Press the next day. And one day after that, Woody Hayes, the head coach from Ohio State, calls. He says, "Hey, Doug, I saw that Joe Paterno was at your high school. He came and visited you." I said, "Yeah, coach, he was really interested in me." I could say that. He already recruited somebody that was going to play my position. I'm telling you, Joe Paterno was able to get me a scholarship to Ohio State just because he expressed interest.
Wow. That is a great story right there, Coach. And for you young athletes listening, I mean, never underestimate the will and just putting forth your heart, you know. And I thank you for sharing that, Coach. I mean, of course, it came to bite him a little bit. But that's a beautiful story right there. So, hey, without Coach expressing how bad he wanted to go to Penn State, you guys, he would have never found his home, which ended up being Ohio State with the great Woody Hayes. And, you know, as they say, that's all she wrote right there. So that's a great story right there. And I'm sure many people didn't know that. That's big.
You know, it's funny because my 6th year in the league, I played for Ohio State, then Chicago Bears for 6 years. I ran across Joe Paterno at a banquet in Western Pennsylvania. It wasn't in Pittsburgh, but he was at the dais along with myself and a couple other players from around the league. And he gets up there. You know, I had seen him before. I shook his hand or whatever. He got up and he made a point of pointing out that he had the chance to recruit me to Penn State. And he just didn't have it. He had already signed everybody he was going to sign. You know what? When a coach does that, I'm serious. I don't even know if my parents would have done that for me. I mean, for him to go out of his way and say something like that was so dramatic because you guys all know football was a tough sport on and off the field. You know, there's very coarse words that are said sometimes about each other, coaches, players. I know I was always criticized because when I hit people hard, I was a cheap shot artist. You know, I was a late hitter. No one realized I was the least penalized player on the Chicago Bears for 5 out of the 8 years that I played there.
Wow.
You know, but they always kept saying, you play until you hear a whistle.
Yeah.
A whistle.
Yeah.
And believe me, you know, I don't know what the reason was, but in college, the whistles came quickly. In the NFL, I don't know. They must have swallowed the whistles because I couldn't believe how late they blew the whistle, or some plays they didn't even blow the whistle.
Oh, wow.
In college, when you hit the ground, you were down. In pro, it didn't matter. You could go down and then you could crawl for another 5 yards as long as no one hit you.
Yeah.
So I made a point of hitting everybody I could.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Wow.
And I mean, just wow. Once again, you guys, for you young athletes listening, this is a perfect example of someone who's a football legend, and a coach liked them, but just didn't have enough space. So just because you don't get the offer doesn't mean the coach doesn't like you. You know, just because you get cut doesn't mean coach doesn't like you. It's just sometimes numbers. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Real quick, Tito. I just want to comment. Part of that, knowing Jopa and the type of coach that he was in regards to Coach Plank, it was a character thing. He was a high character guy, and he knew the coach. He knew Coach Plank was a high character kid. And it wasn't a talent thing or anything like that, but he pointed him out like that because he was hungry and he had high character. See, that's the other part that the kids miss. We have a bunch of monsters out here that are physically gifted, but when that character comes into play, that's when they start. That's when the opportunities start to fade.
Good point. Good point right there. Yep, that's what he noticed. So, hey, you guys take notes. Yeah. We're on to our next topic, you guys. And obviously, you know, not many coach get to miss on Joe Paterno and fall into Coach Hayes. And that's what you did. You know, you went to another legend, and obviously that worked out well for you, Coach. And, you know, he's considered one of the greatest college coaches of all time. His record speaks for itself. So I just wanted to take the time to ask you, Coach, when you think back to your time with Coach Hayes, what are maybe a few key points or tidbits that you took from that time?
You know, when you're a coach at a large university like that, we had 55,000 kids in enrollment. Come on, 55,000? I came from a town of 3,000 people in Western Pennsylvania. Oh my gosh. When that school let out, I mean, there were students everywhere. But my point is, the first day I got to Ohio State, I have to say I was overwhelmed, not just with the facilities and all how big the players were and how strong they were. And many of them were married and had children. I mean, come on, you're going to college and you're married and have kids.
Yeah.
It was way over what I had anticipated. But the first day we were instructed to go to the stadium and learn how to play the defenses and offenses, the plays. And so we were teaching each other where it was offense and defense. But everybody was there to try to just show the coaches what they could do. And so what happened was, what started out as a walk-through practice, a helmet, a t-shirt, shorts, and tennis shoes. It evolved into a full-scale scrimmage. I mean, guys were tackling each other, hitting each other, full speed, using their helmets. And I was a running back. I was a quarterback, but they had plenty of quarterbacks. I don't even know why they even had the quarterback position at Ohio State back then. We didn't throw the ball. It was a handoff drill. Hand the ball off to somebody. Yeah. You're not going to throw it here.
Yeah.
And so what happened was, my first day, I get hit unexpectedly, tackled right in my knee, and I didn't even know what was in my knee. Well, I found out the next day. I had tore the cartilage and partially tore a ligament. It sounds like a health class. The second day I'm there, I'm getting surgery on my knee.
Wow.
Now, when I went back home and people heard about this, they always said, see, I told you, you should never have gone to Ohio State. That place is going to eat you alive. And so I had a whole year to think about it. And, so I know I wasn't the first person that was recruited by Ohio State. I knew I was towards the end of the pile. They were kind enough to let that news out too. But, Coach Hayes, he was so dynamic in terms of his forcefulness. Guys, he really was a strong father to everybody on that team. And, someone said, how was Coach Hayes? He was like your father, and he held you accountable for everything that you did wrong, whether it was using profanity or being late for practice or missing an assignment. He had a story behind it. What it is going to take to be a great football player and a great teammate. And, with that injury, I ended up being behind other All-Americans like Tim Fox, Neil Colsey, guys like that went to the NFL. Craig Cassidy, his father was a Heisman Trophy winner. So I'm playing behind basically what's going to be NFL players.
Yeah.
So I'm on the kickoff for 3 years. I started 5 games my 3 years. I didn't start any games my junior year. I started 2 my sophomore year and 3 my senior year. But the last game of the year, usually that's the one that determines whether you go to the Rose Bowl. And I went to 3 Rose Bowls. Archie Griffin, the guy behind me, went to 4. But the bottom line was, it was so hard. I got a chance to start these games because somebody else was injured. And it was frustrating because, I know the last game of my career at the Rose Bowl, we were playing USC all 3 of those years. And they had OJ. I mean, they just had everybody.
Wow.
They had stars all over the place. And
Wow.
go to a stadium like that, that was just so packed with Ohio State fans, but also USC fans. It was really the big time. And so I really, the only thing I did was run down on kickoffs my senior year. And that's why I was so surprised the day after the draft when the Chicago Bears called me and told me they drafted me in the 12th round. I was shocked because, they had pro day back then. They brought all the players and how high can you jump? How fast can you run? You know what? I was never invited to that. I mean, now why would I ever think that I was going to get drafted? I never thought I was going to get drafted. I mean, here's a guy that's started 5 games. Yeah, he ran down a lot of kickoffs and made tackles. I was so shocked, honestly. I mean, so I really felt like I had something to prove to not only myself, but the coaches at Ohio State. I think because I got hurt the first day, I never could shake that reputation as being a weaker player. And that's why, I was playing frustrated football my whole time in Chicago.
Yeah.
Hey, I love this hitting. This is fun.
Yeah.
I get there, run full speed. And I led the team in tackles my rookie year, which is the first time that had ever been done. And the only other guy that has broke that since was Brian Urlacher.
Wow.
Oh, that's amazing, Coach. So, sometimes you guys wonder why somebody just has reckless abandon, and it's probably a chip on their shoulder from way back. And that's how Coach Blake played, and that's why we love him. No, that's a great story, Coach. I love it right there. So we're on, and I had no idea you were mainly special teams. That's wild, right there.
Here's something else too that is funny because, and correct me if I'm wrong, Coach, but again, like I was saying with Glenn Mason, who was a Buckeye, played for Coach Hayes too.
Yes.
That was my coach at Kent. It's like everyone from that played for him or was off of that coaching tree, they coach the same way that he does in a lot of ways. High discipline, execute, like it's you see that. I don't care who it was. I'm Coach Plank all the way down. Anybody that played that got up into coaching that played for Coach Hayes or coach with him, that coaching tree or that player tree that developed in the coaches, it's the same thing. That's what's so amazing about Woody Hayes is, what he produced as far as players and coaches, man, coming off that coaching tree. That's really something.
Definitely.
Yes.
No, that's
He was great. I honestly, he never let anything drop. The other thing is he loved our country. He loved every player. He loved Archie Griffin, Rod. I mean, just everybody on that team that worked hard, were successful. I mean, he was just a perfect coach that I needed, especially to go away, to another state. It's like back then, traveling to another state, even if it was Pennsylvania to Ohio, you're going, oh my God, I just passed the state line.
Yeah.
Oh my, it's going to be different here. Everybody's going to have different license plates and drive differently. But you know what? I probably did bite off more than I had expected, coming from my town, my team in high school. But you know what? At least it gave me an opportunity. I had a chance. Jack Tatum had just left when I came in terms of the years. And you know what? Here's all I can say. Whatever you did, you could hit somebody, you could send them to the hospital, you could hit the biggest lineman on a sweep play and knock him over. You could never hit anybody as hard as Jack Tatum. I'm saying Jack was like, his picture was everywhere. In this big arena, where you practice indoors. I loved it, and Jack would occasionally come. Of course, he was playing for the Raiders, and he was such an idol, and his picture was everywhere, and it was really special. And
yeah, he was a hammer, dude.
Honestly, you guys know you're like walking in a dream. It's like,
yeah,
come on, pinch me.
Yeah,
when I wake up, this is Jack Tatum was in this locker room last year.
Yeah, he was a hammer, dude. He was a pure hammer.
Definitely. No, those are all great stories, and this is why we want to have Coach on, you guys, because it's rich. It's rich when you talk to somebody like this. We're on to our next topic, you guys, and this is a good one as well. Coach, you played right away as far as at least on special teams and made a big impact. But when you got to the Bears, like you said, you were the only rookie for a while that led the team in tackles, and obviously Buddy Ryan and the team really took to your ferocious play of style. So tell me, for the young athletes listening, Coach, what are maybe some of the keys to making an early impact on a team?
Oh, that's a question that's been asked of me, and one that I went into coaching for 10 or 11 years, starting with arena football, then college football, then the NFL down at Atlanta Falcons. I was always interested in business too, though. I was a Burger King franchisee for 20 years, and nice. And even like there were some food companies down in Atlanta like Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I was down there trying to become a franchisee at Chick-fil-A, and I thought, you know what, while I'm down here, why don't I go over and just see if Arthur Blank would give me an interview? Sure enough, I get an interview. Jim Mora was the coach at the time, and I got hired as the Arena Football League coach. That's my Georgia Force jersey there in blue. And then what happened was I took a week off, and then the Falcons season was starting. So I went from arena football, whatever, 15, 16 games. I was in training camp.
That's wow.
Like 4 hours. But it was awesome. I mean, just to be in that environment with all those players, those coaches, it was really comfortable for me. I'm not saying I was some great coach or anything. I did have a lot of success in arena football, but somehow that 46 defense, my number was 46, and Buddy Ryan, who was our defensive coordinator at the time, said, "Doug, you're no free safety." He said, "You're acting like you're a free safety. You're just a deep linebacker." So what I'm going to do is, one day he came out with this 46 defense, 6 men on the line of scrimmage. He brought me up to the middle linebacker position, and Mike Singletary wasn't in Chicago yet. So I made the calls. Gary Fensick, our other safety, went to free safety.
Mm-hmm.
How about that? He's a receiver at Yale. I mean, you talk about these things happening. How can you go from receiver at Yale in 2 years? He's the starting safety, with the Chicago Bears. It has this history of Dick Butkus and all these other great players just destroying the defenses. I used to love sitting in my living room watching NFL games on Sunday with the Pittsburgh Steelers. All they cared about was ruining the other team. It was just like the Bears. Okay, even with Gale Sayers, their offense was bad. But the defense was fun. They were just jumping on the piles, and Dick Butkus was twisting heads. And it was really, and a lot of those guys they still were around the team, which made it really nice. Like in college, I met Jack at Ohio State. He came back after his NFL season was ended, or at the Rose Bowl or whatever, And, he would talk to the team. I mean, it was like, hey, pinch yourself. Like, is this really happening to me?
Yeah.
Not really John Tatum in front of us.
Yeah.
Telling us a story.
I remember when I was in school, man, and Mr. Sayers used to come back to Kansas and talk to us. And
Wow.
and he used to always be like, man, it's nothing like playing the Steelers at Soldier Field, man. He was like, I made it my business. Like, I'll go try to get 300 yards on these boys. But he used to always say that story. He's like, I always make sure I had fun. He said, but it's something about playing the Steelers. He was like, man, the air was different,
Totally different.
Big time game.
It is a difference.
Well, that is great right there. And let's go on to our next topic, you guys. If you are just tuning in, you're with Coach Wood, Q the Guru, and the great Doug Plank, you guys. This is someone that had an amazing career at Ohio State, went on to the Chicago Bears and became, you guys, a stalwart part of their defense, and then had a great career coach in Arena Football League, NFL, and just a treasure trove of knowledge, you guys, for us to take advantage of. Q, we'll start with you on this one. Flag football. Flag football is coming to the Olympics, which is pretty exciting. The Olympics will be in LA in 2028. And Roger Goodell is already saying, Q, that he's fielding interest from NFL players that want to get a gold medal. They want to be a part of the NFL or the flag football Olympics and be a part of the team. Maybe a Pat Mahomes, maybe some of these guys that you see here like Jettas or McCaffrey. So let me ask you, because he's also fielding interest, Q, to start a professional flag football league, women's and men's NFL subdivision flag football league. So I want to ask you, when you think about NFL players playing in the Olympics, or when you think about the NFL starting pro flag football leagues, which one do you think we see first, Guru?
I would probably say that you seeing NFL pro players in the Olympics. Reason being is because, to me, marketing wise, that would be the easiest way to more and more incorporate other countries into American football, right? That's how if you want to grow this game on a global scale, that's going to be the best way to do it, hands down.
Okay. Well, talk to me, Coach Blake. I mean, obviously, we want to win the basketball gold medal, and that's been tough sometimes, and we send our best over there. Do you think that the NFL will send their best to play in the Olympics and flag football, or do you think we'll see a pro flag football league first?
I think I love the Olympics idea because I think NFL players are always willing to try something new. I mean, the rules change all the time. I mean, just look how different the rules are now than what they were 20, 30 years ago. Yeah. Engaging receivers, quarterbacks, running backs. I mean, there's just a lot of things. Even this, I never thought the day would come because I always thought special team players, usually they're in the very bottom of the roster. They call them expendable. Not incredible, expendable. What does that mean? Well, if they get hurt or get knocked out or they can still go in the tent, it's okay. We all got our starters are still healthy. They can still go out there. I played when starters had to play on special teams. You didn't get off the field on fourth down. You were right there rushing the punter, the kicker. I was on our kickoff return. I lined up right across from the kicker. And guess what I was scheduled to do every play, every kickoff? And that was go destroy the kicker. Now, the kickers, sometimes couldn't even, they didn't have the athletic ability. They could kick a ball 60 or 70 yards, but they couldn't avoid someone coming at them. Right. And they got so scared that, they would just jump on the ground face first, like, hey, don't hit me. So I would just, generally, just go from that kicker to somebody else, the hit. And I grew up, like I said, on special teams in high school and at Ohio State, all those games. I was on the kickoff and kickoff return team. And, that's where I really was able to gain that technique of running full speed into someone. I never was about, having my arms out trying to tackle anybody. Nobody, I watch football. I don't see anybody running full speed at another person and then having their hands out like a bird. Guess what? If the guy decides to juke you a little bit, he could rip your arm off. There's a reason why I had to replace both of my shoulders and knees with titanium. And most of the time, it wasn't just defense. It was the special teams.
Yeah.
Believe me, I got bigger hits on special teams than I had ever on defense. But you know what? They weren't that visible. The camera wasn't on Doug Plank hitting the kick or somebody else coming down on the kickoff. So, I really value the friendships though and relationships that I had with those players, because maybe they were not as fast, as big or strong as some of the other starters were. But you know what? I think they did things, running down the field, sacrificing themselves, throwing their body out there that just some people on the team just would not be willing to do.
Yeah. Great point right there, Coach.
Yeah.
And we see the great Clive Wall. What's going on, superstar? This is one of our players out of Texas, and he's a defensive kid. He loves to get after it. So this is a perfect show for you to tune into, Clive. Thank you for joining us. And I see my mother-in-law. She said, I'm checking in from snowy Denver, and this woman does not play about her football. She's there with some chips and dip every Sunday, and she knows who Doug Plank is. So thank you, Mama, for joining us. We are on for our next topic, and this one's a big one, because Coach, you've had success transitioning to life after football, but unfortunately, that's few. There are a lot of young men that are having a hard time, Coach, being prepared for life after football. I found this interesting. I know you've worked with the Players Trust, and shouts out to the Gray Hannibal Navies, who I know works with the Players Trust. But this says, I always tried to prepare for the day football was over. Every offseason when I was with the Chicago Bears, I managed to make more money than I did during the regular season. I knew I could survive and have success after football. I did that by continually pushing myself in the offseason. What could I do? What skills could I acquire? What licenses could I go out and get? So I wanted to ask you, Coach, because most young men are terrified, of the day that they hang up their cleats. But that just shows so much insight that you had. You were making more money back then than you were playing. Was that something that your dad or mom told you to do, or a coach? How did you know how to pursue life in that manner?
Well, I had a choice to watch other players go through that same setup, have the end come, go talk to the head coach, be told that your skills are deteriorating and you're not as aggressive, or you're not the player we were when we drafted you or signed you. And watching grown men walk out of a locker room with tears in their eyes, and you could tell there was a lot of sadness. And these were friends for years. And I just thought to myself, we are all going to be in that boat someday. We're all going to have, the coach wants to see you and bring you your playbook. That means, son,
the Turk.
It's over, the Turk. And it was, we all knew that the end was going to come at some point in time. So when I saw a few of these, and these were grown men crying as they walked out the door, I said to myself, I never want to be in that situation. So every time someone asked me to come and talk to their company or their situation, their employees, I always made a point of talking to the owner of the company and ask him, how did you get involved in this business? Did it take training? Was it part of your family? Did it require a lot of money? I literally interviewed every person that ran a company that asked me to come. So this is like over 8 years. I was one of the more popular speakers. Walter Payton was obviously the most sought after person just because of all the great things that he could do. And but you know what? I ended up speaking to Burger King Corporation, and I asked one of the persons afterwards. I said, "How, if I was interested, how can I get involved in this?" Well, we're all interested in eating hamburgers. I mean, it was cheap, and the money was big. It wasn't like Monopoly money. I mean, you valued a dollar or quarters. My first car, brand new, was $1,800 in '76. My first house was $53,000, and it was only 5 years old. I'm going, you got to be kidding me. Of course, my salary was $18,000 too, so that went right along with it. But my point is, that's the one thing I think the NFL has dropped the ball on for years. They should be able to go out because of their reputation and their notoriety in the various cities. They could set something up, a communication with all the companies in town or even out of town, and send letters out to them and say, hey, listen, we've got a great group of men here that would love to work for you. Could we somehow, start interviews in the off season? I wouldn't recommend this during the season, but during the off season, just like I did my own little personal interviews.
Yeah.
And things, when I would do things and speak, like I said, I would always try to interact. Where's the CEO of this company? Where's the president? Who owns this company? And I would ask all those questions, so then I found out that, I had a degree at Ohio State, but it wasn't a degree that I could really get a job. It was like a sociology degree in criminology. I talked to a few criminals in jails while I was going through my 4 years at Ohio State. I never thought I wanted to be in prison. I never thought I wanted to be a prison warden or whatever. I mean, it was something that I felt like I could get done. It wouldn't require a lot of study, and I didn't have to be a Rubik's Cube guy and all that sort of thing. But you know what? They would help NFL players so much with their great impact in these different cities like Chicago. Why would I have to go out there and interview people on my own? Why couldn't somebody from the Bears basically send out a letter of interest to a number of companies in Chicago and basically drive up interest in the players and then arrange for them to go get interviews instead of this literally grown men with families having tears in their eyes as they're walking out of that locker room for the last time and going out there and just driving away. I'll tell you what, it breaks your heart, because unfortunately that's where most NFL players, everybody thinks it's the NFL. No, it's not for long. That's the acronym.
Yeah.
So when you think you've round the corner, I've got everything. No, you get hurt, you're injured, your skills have deteriorated. It's a slow ride getting to the top. I'll tell you what, but after a couple of years up there and your skills start eroding, the end of it is a cliff. You're coming down so fast. It's not like you go from being a part-time starter, maybe to special teams. No, you go from a full-fledged starter to saying, no, we don't want you anymore. And good luck going to someplace else.
Well, yeah, as my dear friend Hannibal Navy says, the game drops you off at some point, and are you ready to be dropped off? Q, I mean, come on, man, the level that Coach played at, the level that we played at, you had to put your all into it. You had to put your heart into it, your time, your blood, sweat, and tears. I don't know when there's time to gather some of the skills, that will pay the bills when I'm done. Whose job is that, Q? Is that on the athlete, or is that on their parents, or is that on the schools they attend, or the football organization that they play professionally for? Whose job is it to make sure that a Troy Davis, who he played against at Iowa State, somebody maybe a little rough around the edges, whose job is that to make sure they're okay after football?
I think, Coach, it's a combination of all the above, right? But you have to, And I try not to always use myself as an example because my dad was a U.S. Marine, so it was like I knew early on, I knew early on nobody's coming to save you, right? Nobody's coming, right? Nobody's coming to save. So it's like for a lot of these kids, day after, just like Coach Plank said, he took it upon himself. If the Bears would have sent those letters out of these other organizations, Frisco, the Eagles, the Cowboys, whoever would do that for these players, great. But nobody's coming to save you. You have to take on that mentality very, very early in life, right? So, again, this is what we, from day one have always explained to these young players on this show, on this platform that we've been blessed with.
Yes.
The length of time in football. Enjoy it while you're balling, right? Because it's football. It's full throttle, balls to the wall, and anything can happen on any given play. And you have to know that. You have to know that football is a business, right? And understanding that, you have to have an alternate backdoor situation for yourself. You have to.
Okay. All right, you guys. So you young athletes, listen, you parents and coaches listening, it takes a village. If you're going to use these athletes on Friday nights, Saturdays, and Sundays, then maybe help them get an interview or help them do a speaking engagement too.
No
okay?
doubt.
And you young athletes, don't take it upon them. Listen to Coach Plank. You can make some calls yourself. So appreciate you sharing that, Coach. We are on to our next topic, and we're ripping and running through the show with the great Doug Plank, you guys. And I'm excited for this next second of the show. This is the lightning round, you guys. The lightning round where we get an opportunity. I know this is Coach Plank's first time going through this, but like he said, he used to run down on some kickoffs, so he was fast and he was making some plays. We're going to see if Coach Plank can make some plays on the lightning round, okay? So, Coach Plank, you got 60 seconds, and the name of the game is for you to say the first thing that comes to your head when I say someone's name, when I say either or, you say the first thing that comes to your head, okay?
Okay.
All right, Coach.
Coach,
it's like 2-minute drill. So if you're on the sideline, it's this, right? That's what that is.
now here's a little tip, Coach. Don't elaborate. One word so you can go fast. You want to get as many as possible in 60 seconds. I got Coach at zeros right there. And we don't just do this for fun, Coach. I don't know where you're living right now, but we do this for a dinner. So if you can get to 15 or higher in 60 seconds, then it's a dinner on the locker room show, wherever your favorite spot is. So, it might not be an Arthur Blank dinner, but a decent dinner on the locker room show. So let's get the stopwatch going, Coach. And are you ready to roll?
Well, you left out the fun part. And now, Coach, if you don't get 15, we're going to send you a Michigan sweatshirt. That's the deal. I'm playing, Coach. Hey, T, he was about to drop off the line on us.
I was.
Yeah, he's drop on it, dude. And Ohio State's up right now. They're up with some national championship rings, so we're trying to keep Coach happy. So let's go. We got Coach at 00s. And we don't want to make him mad because he might hit us. So let's go. Number one, Coach. First thing that comes to your mind. All right, get ready. Number one, Norwin High School. Go.
Thankfulness.
Woody Hayes.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Woody Hayes.
Overpowering.
Best player you ever played against?
That's hard to multiple positions. I would say, even though he's on our own team, Walter Payton.
Crab or lobster?
Lobster.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Buddy Ryan.
Army sergeant.
Golf or tennis? 50 seconds.
Golf.
Best player you ever played with? You already said Walter Payton, so we'll give you that. Ronnie Lott or Ed Reed?
Ronnie Lott.
Roger Goodell.
Equalizer.
Time. Good job, Coach. And then we'll give you one more.
Look, listen, a guy like you that's played against so many legends, every time we get a guy like yourself, it's like best player, it's like, oh, hell.
You know what? You start thinking about the guy that ran over you, and that was Earl Campbell. So I was getting ready. I was waiting for the Earl Campbell question. You guys didn't give it to me, but right after he ran over me, he knocked Gary Fensick, the other safety, out.
Oh, my God.
And you know what was so incredible about this? They ran the ball. They gave him the ball so much. You knew he was going to get the ball. And, you know, one thing I taught myself at safety, I would watch end zone camera. What does that mean? That means the camera is in the end zone on both ends. Right. And you look at the game like a safety would look at the game. They're facing you between the left and the right part of the screen. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're in the sidelines at the 50-yard line. No, I hated those seats. Right. I wanted to be in the end zone because I knew every time I watched those guards and centers, they would tell me not only was it going to be a run, but where it was going to be a run. And I would watch that film over and over again. And I taught Mike Singletary, I just suggested that to him. I said, Mike, you know, you're going to be, you know, playing this 46 defense, and he was already in a linebacker position. That man studied. He just kicked butt. And I'm just so happy for him and the career that he had.
Nice.
Wow. Not too many people can say they fed into
Mike
Singletary. And one for the road, Coach. You going Jim Tressel or Urban Meyer?
Wow, that's another tough one too. You know, having known both of them, and I will say this: I coached with Coach Tressel during my coaching zing of 11 years or 12 years, and as much as I love Urban Meyer, I really, you know, having coached with Jim Tressel, here's what the difference was. They're both great coaches. Jim Tressel would bring military men into our conversations every Monday, whether we won or lost. Usually we won all of our games. These guys would talk about sacrificing for each other. No arms, no legs. Some guys came in and basked. You know what? You know it was going to be a tearful day when you saw some of these military veterans come in, and just how much appreciation that Coach Tressel had for our military. And that's what I'll give him over the top. But Urban Meyer, great coach.
Yes,
they both had two great runs at Ohio State.
Yeah.
Both great. All right, you guys. So, hey, let's revisit our list, and we'll give that one to Coach as well. So, once again, 15 to get to dinner. So, number one, Norwin High School. This is in PA. This is Coach's old high school. He said thankfulness. Number two, Woody Hayes. He said overpowering. That's his old Ohio State coach. Number three, best player you ever played against. He said, I got to give it to my teammate, Walter Payton. Number four, and then honorable mention, Earl Campbell. Number four, crab or lobster. Coach says, give me the lobster. Number five, favorite holiday. Coach Plank loves Christmas. Number six, Buddy Ryan. He says Army. Number seven, golf or tennis. Coach says, give me some golf. Number eight, best player you ever played with. We're going to get that to Walter again. Number nine, Ronnie Lott or Ed Reed. I had a feeling he was going to go with the hitter. He says Ronnie Lott. Number 10, number 10, Roger Goodell. He says the equalizer. And then number 11, Jim Tressel over Urban Meyer. So thank you, Coach, for playing along with us. And we are on, you guys, to our last section of the show. Super excited and pumped up to have Coach on tonight, if you can't tell. But this is the audience section of the show. So if you do have a question for the great Coach Doug Plank, then please feel free to put it in the comment section. But Q, I know you got a question for Coach.
Yeah, Coach, I've been waiting to ask you this, and you kind of mentioned them, but just take us back for a minute, right? Tell us what you thought the first time you actually sat back and watched Sweetness play, man.
You know, the first time that I met Walter, after the draft, the next weekend, Jack Pardee, who was then the coach, who had played for the Rams, a linebacker, a tough guy. If you're a big tackler, you want to be a tough guy.
Yeah.
But anyway, the NFL was always set up on alphabetical order. So you were always put with the guy next to you in terms of his first letter of his last name.
Right.
That was Walter Payton. So my first adventure with Walter was in that 3-day camp down in Florida where we got to know each other. Oh my gosh. Now I had played with the only 2-time Heisman Trophy winner, Archie Griffin, but Walter, oh my gosh, he not only was a running back, he was a receiver. He was a quarterback. You ever notice some of those runs he had and then throwing the ball 65 yards? Easy.
Yeah.
You know what? He hit me with a forearm one time. I felt like a baseball bat. I felt like a Louisville Slugger. And then you put his skill in where we were offensively. He was 80% of our whole offense. And so why would anybody ever try to, hit Walter at practice? No. When he got the ball, we all knew it on defense, like for scout team or whatever.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to hit Walter. Not that he doesn't want to get hit. He likes getting hit. But you know what? He was the only show we had. He was the only cylinder in our engine that we could count on play in and play out. He had an unbelievable family, which even got greater and better, as they all got older.
Yeah.
And I just was so humbled to be around him. And it was just, every time that I ever accidentally got into him, I was, sometimes there's friendly fire in football. And that's a term that means you didn't mean to hit somebody.
Yeah.
Around the huddle, you guys know this.
Yeah, of course.
Running around, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, you accidentally hit somebody or he hits you. You never, ever wanted to hit Walter because, number one, it hurt. And the other thing is, you never wanted to cause any sort of discomfort to him. And I just, playing for the Bears, that was like one feat that, I was happy for. But to play with Walter Payton, man, it ranked right up there. He was a unique individual. And, it's just a shame that, his life wasn't longer. He had a great family. Connie, his wife, is a super lady. Jared, his kids doing great. I was so lucky to have him as a roommate my rookie year. And, awesome. And he kind of cheered me on too. He was kind of cheerleader for me, because he saw me over there doing defense. And, I just treated every play like it was a kickoff. I go, you know what? Somebody's going down this play.
He's smacking somebody.
It might be a blocker, but it might not be the ball carrier. I don't care.
I'm smacking somebody, right?
That's all I care about.
That's awesome.
Wow, that is awesome right there. We got the great coach Eric Foss saying awesome show, gentlemen. Great coach John Hughes saying great show. And I know you guys appreciate it. Tons of great stories. Coach, before I let you go, I would love, we actually help student athletes, football players across the country. And sometimes, the journey doesn't go the way they expect. Maybe they're expecting a scholarship or an NFL shot and things aren't on their timeline. Can you give maybe some advice to the next generation as far as the confidence they need to have, even when maybe the tea leaves aren't showing things in their favor?
It really shocked me when I first got to Ohio State because it wasn't as though there's good, better, and best. They're all the best. They only pick like 30 players a year, and this is true of any powerhouse in the nation. But most of these guys were all high school All-Americans, and here I am. I was really lucky to get, recruited. It wasn't, if it hadn't been for Joe Paterno, I would have never been in Columbus, Ohio. How does that work out? The coach, Joe Paterno, and like I said, I could have I think Columbus was actually closer than going up to Penn State.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that for players, you have to have confidence in yourself. But the other thing is, and I found this out very quick when I got to Ohio State. Even though I worked on a garbage truck for 6 years, my uncle's garbage business, it really, guys, that's not a job I would recommend for anybody. You have to start at 4 o'clock in the morning, 6 days a week, and the smell is not the greatest. Sometimes in life you find out what you don't want to do versus what you want to do.
Yeah.
That's something I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
I did it for like 4 years, 5 years. And so my point is, there's a lot of time left over. Your career's over. Even if you're lucky enough to play in the National Football League, sooner or later, your body wears out, just like I was explaining how mine did. And so you have to have something as a backup, especially if you have a wife and children. You have to always be thinking, what can I do after this? So it's really your obligation, I feel, to go out and try to make it as productive as possible, not just during the season, but during the off season. Find out something that you want to do. Here's the other great thing. In our world today, you can get a license to do just about anything if you go expedited in like 90 days or less. I got a real estate license. I got a loan origination license. I got a health license. It was amazing how many licenses I could get in a 6-month period. Well, then, you had to continue education. So you had to keep taking classes and things like that. That was nothing, because when I took all these different classes, I had a whole wall full of licenses. So at the end, even for like tax shelters were big back in the 70s. You could get into a tax shelter, which for every dollar you put in, you could write off $5. So if you put in $100, this, of course, they all took care of this already. All the politicians that, they got, no, the taxes weren't coming in that good year. So we got to eliminate 5 to 1. But my point is, everything started making more sense when I understood, not because I had a criminology degree, but because I was going out and getting these licenses. And, tax shelters were a big deal. I sold tax shelters back in the 70s. But, it's your responsibility. This is one thing great about life. You can't actually depend on your coach and say, the coach is going to help me or he's going to do great things for me. No, that's up to you. That's up to you and your own personal drive, whether it's on a job. One thing I like about, even like the pros, there was a lot of companies in Chicago, and I know this was true around the country, that would hire people in the off season. Back then you didn't do anything in the off season. You didn't come back in for workouts or anything like that. You were gone until, the next year, come in July or something, for the game up in Canton, Ohio, whatever, they never saw you before. In fact, guys would come to the last game with their cars all packed. They were going to Iowa, California.
Wow.
Oh yeah, they weren't coming back. They were gone. They were talking about it during the game. You come off like on a series, they go, man, like in an hour, I can't believe I'll be driving through Iowa. I go, what? I always stayed in Chicago because I didn't want to be accused of, dreaming I was leaving town, as soon as the game was over. And, but I have to say it was a great experience. It drove me to do things that I never would have done otherwise. And I can always look back on it. Still the friends. I still see friends that I played with. And, just knowing that you would do anything for each other. You would put your body out there. I compare it a lot like to the Army. Thank God I didn't have, an M130 or whatever they call it, because sometimes you get on that field and you get the emotions going. Man, I'll tell you what, you'll do anything for your teammates.
Yeah.
You'll protect them. You won't let people anywhere near them, whatsoever. Yeah. And I'll tell you, those ties just never, you're never going to forget it.
Thanks.
Wow, you guys. Well, hey, obviously you see why we wanted to have Coach Plank on tonight. I mean, an Ohio State legend, Chicago Bears legend, arena football legend, supreme entrepreneur, and he loves to give back, you guys. So I know you got a lot out of tonight's show. Definitely run it back. Coach, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
I want to thank you guys, man. Honestly, I felt like I'm at home. Like you're in my family. It's like you guys do an unbelievable job of just
appreciate it, Coach.
Everything, the cold waters.
You're welcome back anytime, my man.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna have you back, Coach. So hey, have a good evening, Coach.
Please do, guys.
All right, you guys. So, hey, that is the great Coach Doug Plank. You guys, look, they're serious about their football. And PA, he went to Ohio State. He made good in Buckeye country. And he is, Q top 100 legend, Chicago Bears, a historic franchise, man. Could you picture being one of the top 100 players to ever play for the Chicago Bears? I mean, he's talking about he's helping out Singletary and roommates with Walter Payton.
That's
crazy.
It
doesn't get better than that.
That's a hell of a life right there. That's what that is, man. That is a hell of a life. But it goes to show even going back what he was saying about the Joe Paterno situation and how he ended up going to Ohio State.
That was huge.
You gotta somewhere in life, you gotta know, man, what's meant to be will be. If you stick to your path, if you never deviate from your path, determination will carry you so much further than what you can ever imagine.
Yeah.
Think about it. It's a whole lot of kids that would have got turned down from Penn State and just shut it down and graduated high school and got a job.
And gave it up. Went to the Army. Back
and
then,
he writes, a ton of letters. And then, if you are hungry and you're determined and you stay on your path, something good will become of that.
Yeah, no, you guys right there. Q said it. I mean, what's yours? If it's meant to be yours, it's coming. It's on the way. Yeah, you got to do your part. What are you doing today to make it happen like Coach Plank? So, hey, we know you guys enjoyed tonight's show. I don't know where else you want to be on Thursday night. If you talking about being serious about some football, I don't know where else you want to be, especially in the off season. We're going to continue to crank out many, many more great guests for you guys. All you got to do is show up and bring a friend. All right. And then also make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. You guys, we do this as a labor of love. We just want to serve and bring you guys people that can help you along your journey. So do us a solid, and please make sure that you like, subscribe, share, and bring a friend. For you 2026 athletes out there that may be looking for some college football recruiting support, we got you covered there too. Before You Go Pro isn't just a podcast, you guys. We got athletes that we help around the country live their dream and play football at a high level, hopefully get some money on your books. And we want to help you out with that. Also, a ton of resources for all you student athletes, you parents and coaches out there. And then many of you guys are getting into the NIL game. Me and Q wish we could have gotten to the NIL game, but our day is done. But this is your time. So if you want to learn how to maximize your name, image, and likeness and do what the universities do and make money, then please check us out at nillllc.org. Once again, nillllc.org, where you can get some information on how to monetize the right way in this NIL era. So once again, you guys, we're bringing it to you every single Thursday. Q's going to be here. Coach is going to be in the locker room, and we're going to have a fire guest. So all we need is you and somebody that to come with you. Great Coach John Hughes says, good night, gentlemen. We love you, Coach. And we'll talk to you. And that is all. Q, anything for the good people before we get out of here, baby?
Hey, man, absolutely. Like I keep saying, man, it's a blur of an off season. Keep working. Stay out of trouble. And tell your family you appreciate them, man. This is like we were saying on the show tonight, man. This is a group effort to get these kids where they want and where they need to go. There's a total group effort, man. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, and a lot of you guys are going to head off to camp. So whether you're going to your first college camp or maybe you're in high school trying to make a name for yourself at a college camp on the recruiting scene, make sure that you're prepared. Make sure you're hanging around the right people and have a great off season. We'll see you next week. This is Coach Wood and Guru. We'll see you at the top.